Destination mark.
Hey guys, how's it going? Marcelo here.
Hey guys, it's Miharu.
What's up, guys? Canadian Guy A here.
It's awesome hearing like everyone's intro at the same time in one video. Okay, so this is the thing we're doing. Welcome to our first ever Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled podcast. If you recall, I've done a couple of these for Insane with G-Man Rocks in the past. Haven't done a podcast in quite some time after, so this is the first time in like, maybe 2 or so years. But we've got a Dream Team cast here, little awesome three-way crossover. So how are you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Nice. Yeah, I'm good too. I was sleeping right now, and I was really tired from work, but been thinking about the podcast all day, so...
Well, there you go. Now we're in it.
Yes. Okay, so essentially we've got a 3-act structure, for the most part, on how this is going to go. Essentially, we're just going to talk about what the kind of thought process was about how this was first shown off, how it was teased, and then we'll go into what we've seen so far from the trailer, from press releases, stuff like that, what they've been saying, that they're going to add in, and just all that stuff. And then we'll go into what we can expect from like our little speculations and stuff for the game. So I think that's a good order.
Yeah, I think it's a good order too.
So I figured we could start with the teases and whatnot, and this started back in, oh god, was it October? No, it was before October. Oh, way before October. When that poll, that PlayStation Asia poll came up.
Yes.
Who wants to go first with that?
I don't remember that, so I can't really say anything about it.
I do remember. Okay, so I wouldn't say that I exclusively knew every single piece of Crash Team Racing stuff, because at the time back in October, I was focusing on Spyro. I was focusing on getting everything ready for the Reignited trilogy. However, I did hear about the poll, and I heard a few other things as well. At first, when I heard the poll, I just thought it was just a generic question. I honestly wasn't sure at the time if that was necessarily a hint at the time. Not that they wouldn't do it for no reason, just I thought that at the time it was interesting, to say the least. That would be probably the best thing for me, was when I heard that it was interesting.
Okay, so to paint Miharu a picture of what was going on with that, there was this poll that was run by PS Asia, just essentially asking players, favorite this, favorite that. One of them was choose all the games you've played, and it's got this big list of PS4 games ranging from like Uncharted to Insane Trilogy, Metal Gear 5, all this stuff, and then just randomly there's Crash Bandicoot Racing, and people were like, why is that a thing? That's not a thing. And that was the first hint of like, are they planning something? I don't know. So that was definitely that definitely made rounds online. And then after that, I think this was in October, because I believe I covered it. Lots of other people did too. But on at the Brazil Game Show, there was an interview with a rep from Activision, and it's all in Portuguese, so of course we can't actually understand them. But essentially, one of the guys, the interviewer, name dropped CTR. And the guy essentially like neither confirmed or deconfirmed that it was happening. So it was kind of one of those like, typical, we'll leave it up in the air. Like, I don't know, we'll see at some point. So
Right, yeah.
That was totally a thing that happened. But besides that, unlike Insane, there wasn't a whole lot leading up to this until the cookies and the dice. So
yeah.
which our very own CG got some dice.
I did.
Orange fuzzy dice.
Orange fuzzy dice are way too massive to put into a car. I have it on my wall, but in terms of putting into my vehicle, I would likely kill everybody on the road and inside the car as well if I put those up.
You put them there and you're just like, oh no, this was a bad idea.
This would be a terrible idea. I would either be pulled over or pulling off the road. Yeah, it would be bad. So, I remember seeing the Crash cookies, and I was thinking that was the quote-unquote equivalent to the Spyro Easter eggs, if you guys remember, the purple eggs that were being sent around a few days before Crash's release. And I thought that's what the cookies were. Yeah. And it was half right, because some people got cookies and some people got dice. For example, probably a very popular Spyro tuber being Crystal Fissure. He got the Crash cookies, right?
That's right.
But I didn't get the cookies, but I got the dice, right? So I guess maybe it depends on where it went. But when I saw the cookies, I knew right away that there was going to be a Crash announcement soon. I was thinking the Game Awards, but I wasn't sure at first again. I don't like... After, with so many times we had gotten spurned with Spyro, I tried to keep my expectations a little lower, but as soon as I saw the fuzzy dice, I knew it was game over. That was it. Crash is coming. And then I knew right away it was also CTR because of the dice. So that was something. That was that was really interesting to open up the box, and my wife was looking at me when I pulled out these giant fuzzy dice. She was like, "What is that?"
Did anyone ever get like cookies and dice? Like cookies in a dice-shaped box?
I haven't seen any on Twitter. I have not. That would be cool, but I personally have not seen that. I haven't seen anyone get both.
It was really funny too, because everyone thought it was going to be Vicarious Visions, which would get that right out of the way. This is not being done by Vicarious Visions. No, it's being done by Beanox.
Yes.
This is their first entry into the Crash series, so that's awesome. But what made us believe it was going to be Vicarious Visions is the fact that, yes, the fuzzy dice was a callback to one of their old Nitro Kart ads.
Right,
where he's in the store and he sees some dice and he's like, oh, cool, I got these in orange. And so we were like, oh, maybe he's doing CTR now. So, but that's...
Nice dice!
Yeah, nice dice! You got these in orange? Yeah, that was fantastic. I was, like, I mentioned this on my live stream, and, of course, take this as you will. I was, doing my think tank. Sometimes I do a think tank where I just sit down and I just think. And I had gotten, when I saw the Crash cookies going out, and then I saw other people, because other people got their dice before I did, because of course they're in different time zones, and of course people who are in earlier time zone are going to get their dice before I did. And I was thinking to myself that, yeah, it could be Vicarious Visions, but I also, and like I said, I was talking with Mechanizer 8 and Spyro Universe, and I said, it could be Beanox. I did say that, but of course I can't prove that. I can't prove that to anybody. Unless you talk to Spyro Universe and Mechanizer, I had just said it could be Beanox. I said, and what I said was Beanox could be kind of that 1 year buffer before a mainline Crash game comes out or a mainline Spyro comes out. And they're like, okay, we need time to be able to get everything together. We need 1 more year, but we want to get a title out. And they say, hey, Beanox is available. Let's just send them the assets of Insane and just have at it. And that's what I said just off the cuff. And then when I saw Beanox on the bottom left corner, I was just like, that could be what they're doing.
Yeah.
They could be doing that.
I don't know how you guys do that. How you predict what developers the game is gonna have. I can't do that because I don't know any developers that well. I'm just I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess the Toys for Bob thing, that was kind of a thing that stood out because Falcon McBob and everything had Bob in it.
Yeah.
So you're just it could be Toys for Bob. That makes sense. But Beanox is just who's Beanox again?
I never heard of them.
Well, I know almost every ever since the Spyro Detective days, we looked at every single firm that Activision owns. I know the PR team. I know what company they own. I know I study. So if it's Activision, I almost know it. But if it was any other company, I would likely be lost. It's just that I knew that Beanox is constantly helping. They've always been more of a support team. They've been they help with the mainline games. So they help with the Call of Duties, they helped with Skylanders, and they were supporting. And I thought to myself, maybe they are doing a side game. And I said, if they are doing CTR, it might be thrown to Beanox. And that's what I said, but I don't know, we'll see. And then, lo and behold, Beanox is revealed. And Beanox also helped with Spyro as well, the Reignited trilogy. So that makes me very excited for our third topic, which we'll talk later.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We'll talk about that later.
That's also the thing that people need to understand. Of course, we're not going to get into this too heavy because I've done many a video about this. But the fact that with Crash and Spyro, mainly with Crash, people want to see some kind of like a reboot of the franchise, some kind of a new entry, because these remasters are awesome and everything. And of course, we're all super hyped about it. But some aren't, and that's specifically because they do really want to see something new and have some new air breathed into the franchise with some kind of otherly title. Right. And I've thrown my hat to the ring about that, the kinds of different possibilities, such as rebooting it, bringing back a dead project like what Twinsanity was supposed to be with Crash Evolution, something along those lines. So I mentioned that in the Comeback Saga Part 2, specifically talking about Crash's future. That whole video was about that.
Right.
But then I also mentioned CTR. That was a big part of it, and it's in the thumbnail. I teased it at the very, very beginning. Essentially, my whole inclusion with CTR was talking about how seeing something like this, isn't necessarily needed, because I can see how you've got 3 remasters already with Insane, and then wanting to see something new after that. Like, this is the transitional period, in my opinion, for Crash, and even for Spyro with Reignited.
Right.
So that way, it's celebrating the 20th anniversaries of both franchises. It's, showing, going them back to their roots, showing kids of today, like, what kinds of games that we grew up with. So, like, that's already reason enough to bring those specific games back. But it's more of a transitional period because Spyro was in Skylanders for so long, and the Spyro the Dragon brand didn't really have much going on while Spyro was in Skylanders, because as Toys for Bob themselves came out in Reignited's first ever interview, they said and confirmed that they're both separate entities, Skylanders and Spyro. And with Crash, he was... Oh, go ahead.
No, I just said, that's all I said.
Yeah.
I thought Miharu was going to say something. But with Crash, it's different because Crash was, like, gone for, 6 years? Nothing at all. So, now he's here with, with Insane, and that's the transitional period from bringing him back from, obscurity to now he's back regularly. And a Crash Team Racing Remaster is still further pushing that transition. However, I feel like, which again we will also get into with the third part of the podcast, this could allow for much more to be included, because we're already seeing that off the bat. The fact that they're adding in the carts from Nitro Kart, and they've already promised that we're going to get more tracks that aren't just the ones from the original CTR.
Right.
That means they're going above and beyond to include as much Crash as they can, whether it's original stuff from them or other stuff they're pulling from other racing games and stuff like that. It's more of a culmination project than just a straight up, basic remaster of the base game.
Right.
Yeah. That's another reason that I think that, because I know people are asking for, like, oh, can we, like, get Crash Bash remastered next? And I'm just like, I think we're done. We're done with, like, the remasters for a while. Like, for a long while, at least, after this. Because I think this was the last, like, Crash remaster that, like, I actually really wanted. And then after that, I'm like, well, I think we could just get new games from now on. And then maybe somewhere long down the road, like, they can remaster something else. But, yeah. For now, I think it's good.
And I'm going to be honest here, and I'm going to admit something. At first, I didn't think that they were going to do CTR. At first. And I was thinking to myself that they maybe wouldn't... Because what I thought to myself was that at first, if Vicarious Visions is doing was to do a CTR, I thought to myself, then that would mean that we need to wait another minimum 2 years before we saw a new Crash game, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And I would have thought, and I thought to myself, that might be too long. That may be too long to go remaster new title. But with, so that's why at first I was not quite all the way on board the CTR train. But then once CTR started to be announced, I was like, okay, we know that CTR is coming. And what I was saying was, you know how Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Switch went, where it's like, okay, it's more than just the original. It's like there's all these new karts, and there's all these new things, and all these new tracks. And I was saying, okay, because technically CTR, I always got Nitro-Fueled, isn't quite exactly a remaster. It's not quite done the same style as the original Crash games, as there are additional tracks, additional karts, additional features that actually add more content, and not like, for example, the little quality of life features that were added in, like, let's say the Insane trilogy or the Spyro Reignited trilogy. There are whole new assets, whole new things added that are changing the base game.
Yeah. I think that's what we like to call a remaster plus.
Right, but it's even more than that. It's like, yeah, we call that a remaster plus, like we call it the Spyro a remaster plus, but there's more to this than the original CTR, because this isn't a one-to-one to CTR. There's more added from other games, right? For example, the Reignited trilogy, there was nothing else from any other Spyro game that was added into the Reignited trilogy that came preceding that. With CTR, there's other tracks from other Crash racing games implemented in. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Right? So it's going to be a new experience, and that's what I was hoping for. I was like, okay, if CTR is coming, I hope it goes this route. But then with the fact that Beanox is doing that, I'm very interested for next year. Next year is going to be a wild card. Are we going to get a new Spyro title, or are we going to get another Crash Bandicoot title from Vicarious Visions, or are we going to be getting one from... I'm very excited for 2020, because I think 2020 is going to be a very, very interesting... or they might go double down and go both come out in the same year. One come out in June and one come out in November. And I think that would be crazy cool. Whether that's going to happen or not, I have no clue, obviously. But CTR is definitely something that, looking in hindsight, I think is actually a fairly good idea, because that was the last, I would say, probably the last PlayStation 1 era, even entering the PS2, because CTR sold a lot of copies. I think CTR sold, if my memory serves correct, 4.85 million copies.
Wow. Which
is a lot. Like, that's a lot of copies for a game. Even today, if you sold around 5 million copies, the game, that's pretty good. You're doing good.
Yeah.
And of course, that was an exclusive back then. And of course, back then there were even less consoles to customer ratio. So that was a big deal. So no, I don't think any other, not even Crash Bash. That's why when people say, "Hey, we want Crash Bash," it's like, no. This, first off, it was not made by Naughty Dog. It's not an original. The sales for it were not great. I think it was, like, imagine from comparing two spin-off games, I think CTR was like almost 5 million copies, and then I think Crash Bash was like 1.8 million, 2 million. It was in the 2 million range, and I'm like, that's a huge drop, right? And so, but last thought that I just want to get in is that PlayStation doesn't really have a kart racer. And now, of course, this is not exclusive to PlayStation, but now PlayStation has that, because, I mean, kart racers are not really popular. The only other one that was been, from my knowledge, coming out was the Sega All-Stars Racing, or whatever it was called, right?
Yeah.
And then this one comes along, and it's just like, oh, this one holds a lot more weight than the Sonic racing game, in my opinion, to me at least.
I feel the same way, definitely. Actually, speaking of, like, the terms and everything for what this would technically be considered, would you call it, what was the term you were trying to coin in your Reignited video, whether it was a remaster or remake?
It was a
remake.
Remake light.
That, okay, so
remake light.
That's what I call it, remake light.
Would this be under that category, or is it some entirely different?
I would say that this almost breaks a category again, as in a brand new game, because entirely, like I said, they're setting down a slate that allows them to be able to put more tracks that were not in the original, and perhaps even more characters that were not in the original. And yeah, the controls may be the same, but I mean, at the same token of time, they're adding so much that was not in the original, and I don't mean like, as in there's stuff that they're adding that was not even there, like no new tracks, these tracks that they're adding, these carts and stuff. So remake, I would almost say that this is not quite it. This pushes it to pretty much a brand new game with old tracks added. Now, to my knowledge, we have no recollection to if it's going to be the one-to-one the same story, right? Is there we don't know if it's going to be the same story. We just know that it's tracks, it's racing, it's Crash, and everyone's happy that he's back. Online, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh yes! Oh my god, I went crazy over that because I was like, that is the one feature that you have to have there, because we're in that age of everything's online, and even with the smaller things, with Insane being, you know, the leaderboards for the time trials, it would make sense. It wouldn't make sense to not have it, you know. So
I was gonna say that, like, you don't know if it's gonna be one-to-one the same story. I'm like, you know, we all know that Crash Team Racing has a pretty deep lore.
Yeah, real in depth, right?
Well, I actually have. Sorry, hold on. Let me get a quick thought out before I forget it.
Yeah.
I think that the plot, you know, for what little there is, could stay intact. If they're now we don't know this. If they're talking about adding completely new tracks in, or even tracks lifted from Nitro Kart, that could have to do with multiplayer, because there were the cup races,
right?
Akin to Mario Kart 8. They had 4 during the port over to Switch. They had there were buried in the files 4 unused icons for cups that weren't a thing in the original Wii U game. So those were utilized for extra courses and tracks and whatnot for the Switch port. So for cup matches and everything in Nitro-Fueled, they can have the ones like the Wumpa Cup, Aku Cup, whatever there is, that were in the original, and then add like 4 so more with new courses, be it original, lifted from other games. So that could be it. And then the adventure mode can have the base ones we all know and love, and keep that as intact as they could without making it weird by changing it up, having to feel the need to include all that stuff in the adventure mode. So they might leave those separate. I'm not too sure.
I mean, it's entirely possible. You see, we don't have a lot of information about this so far, and something that I noticed too is that they were definitely very hush-hush about this overall. I mean, this wasn't falling with leaks. Like, the Insane had some leaks coming out. Spyro had leaks galore. Like, every week it was something new. So, this one, relatively quiet. They kept fairly hush-hush about it. And so, we still don't know a lot of details about this. That, like I said, all we know is CTR's back. There is some things that we know, but not enough to be really conclusive on that. But I mean, if they were to just go with the regular adventure mode story, that'd be cool too. But they may also include a new mode where maybe the story continues in some way, like a new game plus, where it's like, okay, new game plus,
that'd be cool.
Where it's like, okay, you have all these original races and the new races that were added, right? I mean, who knows? Who knows what they're gonna do with this? Beanox is handling it, and something I quickly want to add as well. Now, this is what I kind of want to say in terms of the game. Was when I went to Toys for Bob, I was talking with a certain high member of Toys for Bob. I'm not going to say who, and I'm not allowed to say who, but I will say a certain member. And what they were telling me, I asked them about talking about the Alchemy engine and how originally the Skylanders games ran on the Alchemy engine, just like how Crash ran. It was the same engine before. And I was talking with them, and they said that under the hood, Alchemy is very similar to Unreal, and there was some rumors I had been hearing that some assets from Alchemy can go over to the Unreal Engine almost 1-to-1. So whatever models were made in the Unreal Engine, or whatever models were made in Alchemy, could be made and shifted over to the Unreal, and everything can run fine. So like the coding was similar. Of course, there's some transitional issues. And so what my thoughts were is I still think that Crash Team Racing is Unreal, and what they likely did was that Vicarious Visions shipped off all the assets from the Insane trilogy that were on Alchemy, fired them over the Beanox and said, here you go. Because, I mean, if you even look at Papu Papu's Temple, you can see some of the trees from Wampa Islands back there. You can see assets that are exactly the same. I mean, Crash looks exactly the same. Coco, Purah, everybody looks exactly the same as the Insane trilogy. Yet they said that the Alchemy, this was the final game for the Alchemy. So the only assumption is that this game is in the Unreal Engine. And my thoughts is when talking to that developer was that they were able to do a fairly good 1-to-1 transition, and that's likely how they were able to maybe get this game going, because we didn't really hear too much about CTR wanting to be a thing until after Insane came out, if I'm correct.
Right? Yeah, definitely.
So the amount of time that they probably had, they probably were like, here's all the models, here's all the assets, you don't need to make anything new, and whatever you do have to make new, it's not too much, because I mean a lot of the Crash Team Racing levels looked similar to other assets from other Crash games. So all that they would do is just like, okay, this level was similar to the Wampa Islands. Okay, let's grab the Wampa Islands assets. It's almost like almost create a track from like Modernizing Racers, right? Yeah. And like here we have the assets from the Insane trilogy. Drop that, and then okay, we need this new asset. Drop it in, make something new for it, and build it from the ground up. But this is likely how they were able to get the game up and running fairly fast, because the assets were already made, the game is already made, and they were likely able to possibly get the code from Naughty Dog. I mean, if they had the original trilogy, they likely had CTR as well, and so the assets are made, the code is there, it just needs to be placed. So it probably was much faster to be able to produce because the groundwork was already set.
Oh yeah, definitely. Those were my thoughts as well too. And it's really funny because, believe it or not, if you heard around, that's something of a complaint people had, was that it was very similar.
Oh,
and
come on.
I'm like, would they do it any different? Because it makes sense. Yeah, Canadian Guy just laid the ground of like, that's probably how it happened. And if you even go back to the original CTR, how it was built off the original, Naughty Dog platforming trilogy, that is what they did. I mean, they tweaked the models and stuff. The models are in fact different from the platforming games, but coming off the heels of Crash 3, they already were, messing with how do vehicles work in a 3D environment. How can we make, Crash move around with the motorcycle, Coco with the jet ski, and then I feel that was their first, test with doing something of that caliber, and then transitioning over to a racing game. It included, bringing back assets, bringing back, all these, environments that we knew, like the sewer levels, like the sewer, what's it, Speedway or something from CTR, is legitimately just Crash 2 sewer levels for the most part.
That's it. It's just recycled. It's recycled. Yeah. And that's fine.
Exactly. I mean, it still looks good anyway for its time for the original games, not for here. Like, it makes sense, and it looks even better. So, I mean, not only are they, reusing assets and whatnot from Vivi, but they get a chance to, make them look even better with this engine, and, I mean, I don't see why people are making such a big deal out of it. Not that it's a huge complaint, but I've heard it around, and I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, that's kind of a silly complaint. I mean, I feel like when we start talking about old games, people put on the nostalgia glasses. My nostalgia! And if you ruin anything at all, it's just the ceiling falls in, everything collapses. The world's ruined, and it's just like everyone just needs to calm down.
Literally unplayable.
I was saying, like, did you see the post that I made today with
the nitpicker voice?
I know, the nitpicker voice.
Yeah, the bubble bath voice. Yeah.
Where's the yellow, brown, and puke green of the original?
Yeah, because I remember because I posted my reaction video today, when I saw Papa's Temple and what they did with it, I was just like, oh my god, like my mouth was just...
I watched that reaction, yeah.
I was just like,
Mouth
like, wow.
agape, just in shock.
Oh yeah, I was in shock because it literally looked like puke green with a corner sticking out in the, in the corner of the distance, and now it's just like, it's a lush Aztecian jungle, and it's beautiful. And really, I'm very open when it comes to these things, when it comes to like nostalgia and stuff. I understand certain assets of nostalgia, and I get certain things that need to be there and things that could be gone. But if they're adding on to what was there, it's not a problem for me. It doesn't bug me at all. And like I said, to me, at the moment, I'm looking at CTR, and I don't have any complaints about it so far. I like, from what I've seen, I have no complaints. It looks good. Of course, that's just from a visual standpoint. The biggest thing about CTR, which a lot of people are putting up on such a high, not a high tower, but such a high caliber, I guess, is the controls.
Oh, exactly.
Right, that's the thing that everyone is looking to, is what does it control like? Because everyone loved the original controls of the original CTR. And it's something that is going to be weird to see. Are they going to keep it exactly the same? Are they going to tweak it? Are they going to revamp it? What are they going to do? So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I can understand, like, that's going to make a lot of people upset if they, like, don't get it right, because that was something that most people, loved about CTR, is like its controls like felt just so good, and like they were easy to get used to, and you could do so many, pull off so many tricks with them, and then so I feel like people are just gonna nitpick the hell out of that if they don't get it perfect,
I think people are going to nitpick it whether they get it perfect or not. I mean,
that's exactly the thing. The thing I've always said when it comes to all of these, from Insane to Reignited, even now to Nitro-Fueled, the controls are not going to be one-to-one. They just simply aren't. It's going to be damn near impossible to get them feeling exactly the way they did with the originals. And the only thing I can personally ask for is make them fluid and feel good. It doesn't have to feel exactly like the originals, just make it feel good.
Yeah, and I feel like that they did that with, like, in terms of aspects of Spyro. Like I said, it didn't feel, like, when you turn to me, does it feel exactly like the original? No, it did not feel exactly like the original at all. It felt new, but it felt tighter. It felt certain things were different, and it felt good overall. More fluid. Exactly. It wasn't quite as choppy. It wasn't quite as, and we don't think about the choppiness through our nostalgia glasses, because back then we know, the PlayStation 1 was limited. Now we don't have that choppiness. We don't have that problem. We have this fluidity, and it feels fine. The controls feel good, and for the most part, at least. And I feel like with Crash too. I mean, I will have to admit, for better or for worse, for the Insane trilogy, they got as close as possible to the original. Like, it was...
Oh, yeah.
It was close. The hitboxes were different, but in terms of, like, physical control, it was pretty close. It was...
Yeah. Had a bit of trouble with the hitboxes in Insane.
Yeah, like I said, the pillbox hitboxes are where things get a little bit weird, because they tried refining that, but...
The jump arc as well.
Yeah, the jump arc is a bit off, too. But... Other than that, the controls were pretty close.
And here's the thing about that as well. I feel like these are all just big tests. And again, with Crash and Spyro specifically, like, not even counting Medieval, but with Crash and Spyro specifically,
right?
Because they're so fast paced. Like, Medieval's more of a slower pace because he's always walking everywhere, or even when you're charging as Ferdinand, he's kind of like still not as fast. But with Crash and Spyro, it's more. Crash is faster with the action and the platforming. Spyro is more with the exploration, with how fast he moves, and how open it is.
Right.
But I feel like everything has been a test so far. Insane, when it first was shown off at PSX 2016, it looked good, and we were all... The one thing about these remasters, why we're so hyped for it, isn't just because, I've heard people go, well, why are you so hyped? It's just what you've played before, but it's a glow up. It's, it's improved. But I'm like...
That sounds so stupid.
Sorry, I just had to use it once. But I was like, think about it this way. it's a chance for everyone to play it again. Not everyone has an access to a PS1 or even a PS2.
Right.
Sure, they're on the PS3 and whatever, but to have easy modern access to these kinds of games, I mean, it's cool to see that, you know, you remake them, celebrating a milestone, you know, 20th anniversary and all that. But like, the one thing that makes us so hyped as fans is to see when they say ground up, then immediately it's like, okay, it's not gonna look like the original. So what's it gonna look like? How clean, how crisp, how much detail you're gonna add?
Right.
What are the characters gonna look like? How are you gonna improve them? Are there gonna be subtle design tweaks, which there have been across Crash and Spyro?
Right.
And down to the controls, to everything. When Crash was first shown off at PSX, it looked great, and we were all blown away. However, looking back on it, it looked very early. Like, I think they were just barely halfway into 2 by the time they showed off Insane.
Yeah.
If memory serves right. And so, with that said, you know, they weren't ready to show off a whole lot. It was very minimal at first. It looked good, but there was a lot of placeholder stuff. Things looked super early. Come Spyro, things were still early with the lighting, the shading, you know, all that stuff. But the environments looked great. Everything was lush. It looked really good. Getting to play at E3, some things with the Supercharge felt. I'm always going to say this. It's so funny. When I was watching Miharu's videos when we first met, one of the first ones I watched was her reaction to the E3 footage right before the show floor opened. And even she wasn't even there, and she pointed out, she's like, it looks, for the Supercharge in particular, like it's choppy, like it's not quite right. And when I got to play it there, I was thinking to myself, this doesn't feel quite right. They need to tweak this a little bit. But it's funny how like minds, you know, think alike like that, because you can see it.
Yeah.
And if you know these games as well as we do, you just know.
Yeah, exactly.
But things improve over time with the course of production. It has to. So, you know, that was awesome. And as we all know, you know, if you've played it, it feels good now.
Yeah.
But even again with presentation, Spyro, you know, didn't look early. I mean, in some areas, it looked really, really good, and that's not what we first thought of when we saw it. We were blown away by how everything looked.
Right.
And with CTR now, it's the same thing that's happening again. It always happens. We always get so blown back by how it looks, because there can be so much more detail added now. And of course, the one thing, like we mentioned earlier, that always comes to mind, it's like, okay, now we know how it looks, and it looks phenomenal, but how's it going to control?
Right.
So,
something that I go ahead. Sorry.
I personally think, like, I've been thinking this for a while now. Like, with the whole Spyro thing, how they would always say, like, I think they should really stop saying, "Oh, it's muscle memory. It'll all come back. It's the same." Like, no, it's not. Stop saying that. Stop lying.
Yeah, no, it wasn't exactly the same. Of course, it's not. And you know, not to mention they didn't have the source code. They didn't have that privilege either. So it's like, okay, we have to rebuild that from the ground up too. So I mean, it's not going to feel exactly the same. But one thing I do want to input before we move on was the one of the things that I had mentioned in a video before was, I remember people were complaining that the Insane trilogy didn't get quote-unquote as much love as the Reignited trilogy. And I think that didn't make sense, because to be honest, if you were to look at the original Crash games were actually fairly graphically decent at the time. I mean, especially Warped. Warped was like graphically amazing. The skyboxes, the characters, and like there was literally bushes and animal life in the first Crash Bandicoot game on the Wampa Islands. You're running through, and you can see ferns, and you can see trees, and you can see the bark in the trees, and you can see turtles, and they all got. But then when you look at Spyro, literally the first game is green blobs are your enemies. But Spyro was more of a open and expansive, and didn't have enough space on the disc. While Crash back then, it was like, okay, this is fairly linear and not that big. Let's add more detail. And to be honest, when I look at the Crash Insane trilogy, they did a great job, because the assets and bases were already there. Not a lot of things had to be reimagined at all, because they were there already. You could tell what it was, what the details were, etc., etc. There wasn't anything. But with Spyro, there were a lot of blank slates. Like, okay, what is a Nork? It's a green blob with a puppet mouth. Okay, we can work this up a little bit more. Let's make them look more like brutes. Let's add a hat. Let's give them teeth. Let's actually like build off of this. Let's do more with this, and not just have this blank slate. But something I did notice was in CTR, when we see Papu Papu's temple, because that's like the main wide shot that we see, is right at the start, Papu Papu's temple and everything, and I'm seeing all the articles using that image, and because one, it's a fantastic image, but two, what it's showing is that they are almost taking a chapter out of Spyro's book.
Of course,
with this, where it's not just like one-to-one the same, and the fern that was there before is there now. It's like, okay, if they did Papu Papu's temple one-to-one like they did with the Insane trilogy, Papu Papu's temple would look like, I keep saying that, he's saying over Papu 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 Papu, the temple would look like it'd be covered in just slime, and it would be boring, and it'd be like, okay, yeah, it's there, it's Papu Papu's temple, it's
Actually, it's Papu's pyramid.
Oh, Papu's pyramid. I apologize. Papu's pyramid.
I was like, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to tell him.
Okay, pyramid. I apologize. I haven't played Crash Team Racing as much as Spyro. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But
I haven't played it a lot either. That's why everyone was getting mad at me when I was like, oh, it looks like they added the warped racing levels. It was like, that's Dingo Canyon, actually. And I'm like, okay.
Okay.
I'm getting mad.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, so Papu Papu's pyramid looks much better than it did before. It looks much better than it did before, and they added things to it because they didn't just do what the original Crash game did, or the Insane trilogy did, which was just like, hey, here you go, one-to-one. Spyro, they added so much, and it was, the reaction that people got from it was just absolutely insane. No pun intended. And
pun entirely intended.
And I feel like CTR has taken a chapter out of this Spyro's book. But also, like I said, Beanox has worked on both the Insane trilogy and the Spyro Reignited trilogy. They helped with
learning
both.
in the background.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what's happening, is that they practicing. They're like, okay, we've worked with Spyro and we work with Crash, so let's take the things that we've learned from both and apply it into one game. And it could turn out to be an incredible experience. That where some Crash fans were complaining that perhaps Spyro got more love than the original Crash games, will be silenced with CTR.
Exactly. And like I was saying, how you mentioning, Crash, like I was saying, Crash to Spyro, now back to Crash, they're all learning off each other. That's the thing. Like,
right.
Even though they're all separate companies working on these, but they've all of them have had a helping hand in, it very much is. And this is proof that it can still happen in this day and age and work, that these companies under one publisher are talking to each other, sharing stuff, looking at notes, and they're working in conjunction to make each one, better and better and better. It happened with Naughty Dog and Insomniac 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Them being in the same, across the hall from each other on the Universal Studios backlot, they got to share notes. The same people worked on both, Mark Cerny, all of them worked across both Crash and Spyro. And that stuff is still happening. Probably not with specific people, but again, like Toys for Bob is credited in Insane, and Beanox is credited in Reignited. So like, they're all working in conjunction, trying to figure out how to bring these back and do it right, do it justice. And people are going to say otherwise. They've been for the longest time. But the fact of the matter is that Insane did well. Reignited did well. So CTR, having learned from both of these, is going to do well. Like, you can't sit here and tell me that so-and-so is dead and this is happening here and Crash is just forever going to be a remastered machine and it's gone and there's no life in these series or companies anymore because they're just restricted to doing this now. It's like, no, first off, they wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Second off, they're doing well. Like, you can't deny the facts. So it's like, this is going to be... Nitro-Fueled will turn out to be really good. It's going to be along the lines of, for a racer, it's going to be along the lines of, it's going to compete with Mario Kart 8, even though Mario Kart 8 isn't getting anything new. So, like, it's kind of just there. But the fact that Nintendo's got a racer and now Crash is a racer again, even if it's technically the same kind of racer, but it's still there. and that's awesome. So I mean, I feel it's gonna do well.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to do incredibly well.
So that said, we'll transition to our last point for the podcast. What do you want to see? Like, let's just speculate now. Like, I'm so hyped for this.
Spyro, I want to see my purple boy. No,
that's definitely happening.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I think is going to happen. I definitely think so. So I think to add on to the fact that Beanox has experience with Spyro and has experience with Crash, I think it's inevitable that they are going to get the assets for Spyro as well. And I think that if you look at the Nitrous Oxide edition, they apparently said, quote unquote, that there would be, if you bought the Nitrous Oxide edition, that there would be the stuff that they have set now and more to be announced later on. What that is, we can only assume. We can only figure out. But I think Spyro is going to be in there. I want to see new tracks. I want to see a lot more tracks. I want to see if it's a collection of most of the tracks from all the other games. Fantastic. I want to see, because that we're going with another quote-unquote type of remaster, even though this is once again, like, Activision seems to be leading these types of remasters that are like in their own league, in their own, realm of they're different. It's just like, is it a remake, remaster, remakester, remake light, what's the other one, the remaster plus, right? They're doing their own thing, and everyone's loving it. They're cashing in on it, and you know what? Good on them. Make as much money as you can. Feed off the nostalgia. Have at it. People are willingly to open up their wallets to this. I'm one of them. I mean, let's do this, right? I'm like, here you go. Here's my wallet, and thanks. Here's my credit card, and just whenever a new title comes up, just send it right to my door. I might as well at this point. And Activision knows this. They're banking on it, and that's why they are doing this. I'm just hoping that we get lots of tracks, lots of good online play. I think that this is going to be something that's going to be better for online play than even Mario Kart 8, and the reason being is that the Switch is technically in the next generation, technically speaking. And that means that less people actually own a Switch than, let's say, a PlayStation. Like, for example, just a quick lookup. According to VG charts, as of November 17th, Nintendo Switch has sold 22.7 million units, while the PlayStation 4 has sold 86.1 million units. Meaning that out of all units sold of the modern consoles, 57% of gamers own a PlayStation 4 in all the world. So that would mean that there is a wider audience to be able to race with, because there's many times where you're talking with a friend and say, hey, let's play some racing on Mario Kart. Oh, I can't. I don't own a Switch, right? And there's a lot of people that are gamers that don't own a Switch. But with CTR coming out to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and Switch, I think it's really opening itself up to in the ranges of over 100 million players available to be able to play this game. And in that fact, I think that it's going to pass Mario Kart in terms of sales. And will it do better in terms of like ratings and score? I don't know. However, I do think that it will. It's going to do well. It's going to do very well, and I am very excited to see what they do with it. I want to see, even if they release DLC packs with even more race tracks, sure. As long as it's not like day one DLC, I'm not fond of that. If it's like, hey, 2 months later, hey, we got a new set of tracks coming out in a month, right? Stay tuned.
Yeah.
I do want to see that. I don't want them to drop this game right away. I want them to be able to keep pushing this game, where it's not just a one and done where they release a CTR every 3 years. I think this version of CTR can last for a long time, be one of those games that continues burning on even when the initial sales have ended. Like Mario Kart 8 came out, like 2 years ago now? about 2 years ago
for the Switch.
For the Switch,
for Wii
yeah.
U, that was like 5 years ago.
Oh yeah, for the Wii U, yeah,
Four.
but for the Switch, and
Yeah.
Mario Kart 8 jumped up to almost number 1 again, like when Pokemon Let's Go came out, because everyone's like, okay, we gotta buy a Switch, so they buy Pokemon Let's Go, and they turn around and say, I gotta grab Mario Kart as well. I mean, what's a Nintendo console without Mario Kart? So
Exactly.
it was like Mario Kart 8 jumped back up to like top 10 games sold when Pokemon
Yeah.
Let's Go came out, and that is something that's very powerful, right? So I think CTR is going to do very well. I think that a lot of people are going to pick it up, and I think it's going to be a game that's going to continue to be played later on. I don't want a new CTR in the future, even a brand new CTR. I think that what they have now is fine. They can just keep building off of this, add more tracks, get competitive, have leaderboards, and I think that it'll be able to play for that long as they're able to nail those controls that everyone compliments the game about.
Yeah, exactly. I had a thought, totally flew out of my mind. Miharu, you got anything to say?
Well, I guess I mean I would say about the same thing. I want to see new characters. Definitely Brio. I mean, put Brio in it for God's sake. Probably Tawna, Spyro, of course.
Of course.
And I guess if they're adding like the carts from Nitro Kart or something, then maybe they could add characters from it. Like maybe we could get Crunch or...
That was definitely something I was gonna say, but go ahead.
Yeah, maybe we can get Crunch or, you know, other characters from the PS2 games like Nina or something like that.
Yeah, damn it, I had that thought again, and then it went... Okay, so, essentially, I feel that CTR could benefit, again, just real quick for online again, with, I hear, like, you know, tournaments, so Mario Kart had that, being able to make tournaments that anyone can join, you can make exclusive to friends, stuff like that, play exclusively with friends or with anyone, so stuff like that, which most online games already have, and Mario Kart definitely has it. I feel CTR could benefit from that as well. So battle mode as well, you know, battle mode hella fun, so you can have that. So that'd be really awesome to have, and that would keep it, you know, going. And the thing, like Kenny guy was saying about how it's literally the thoughts are flying out of my head. Basically, like you were saying with the longevity of the game, I feel like that's where Insane kind of got it right, because again, it was a test with Insane being a timed exclusive 1 year on PS4 only. It gave it some time to be like, hey, this was the experience back then, so we're kind of mimicking how Crash was PS exclusive back in the day, so grab it for PS4 now. And then a year later, this year, it was like, okay, now it's on Xbox, it's on Switch, it's on PC. So that brought it up, and then it was like, well, now we've got Stormy Ascent, and now with if you plan to get, you know, Insane for any of the other consoles, or even if you don't, it's coming to PS4 as well. Here's a brand new level that's entirely original to, you know, classic Crash at all. And so we got future tense. So there was some longevity there, because I think they put their cards right with that, and it was a test to see, you know, how people were going to react to it being on different consoles and whatnot. But it worked in the long run. You know. And with Spyro, the longevity of Spyro is that Spyro is really extensive. The 3 games each have a lot to do in them.
Right.
So that on its own is really awesome. If they were to find some way to throw in an extra homeworld in Spyro 2, you know, that, you know, fabled spring-themed one that everyone wants to see, that would further elongate, you know, people wanting to play Reignited. They don't have to do that, because like I said, on its own, all 3 games are already very extensive by nature, so that's going to keep players playing for a long time. But to add stuff, because there hasn't been any mention of DLC, no teases for DLC, no nothing, so we don't know if they are planning that at some point or not. But that'd be pretty cool. If anything like that happened, it doesn't have to. But for CTR, yeah, once in a while dropping maybe something new, like a small pack of 2 to 3 cards, possibly a new character, you know, at some point. That would be really cool. And again, we don't even know if the full roster is going to be what it was in the original CTR.
Right.
Or like Miharu was saying, are they going to add in Brio, Koala Kong, Komodo Mo? Like we really don't know. Like Spyro, of course, is probably going to be a DLC character, if not some super secrety unlockable character. Hell, people were saying add Trippo, the cut character from the original. Like, it hasn't seen the light of day whatsoever. That character would be hilarious to see actually, make an appearance. I mean, go all out. This is your chance to go all out. They already are with adding in carts and whatnot from Nitro Kart. And this was my big thing. Like Miharu was saying, and I was like, yeah, I have a thing about that. So here's my thing. Essentially, people were saying, Crash is a remaster machine, it's going to be nothing but this. It's so sad to see that Crash can't have anything original again. I feel, like I was saying before, with these remasters, in and of themselves being, a transitional period between bringing these characters back and these franchises, these IPs, these brands back, having this transitional period of here's some nostalgia for you, now here's some original stuff. Think about it this way. This is now the chance, and we're seeing small inklings of it, for Crash as a whole, what we've gotten from the entire franchise as a whole, and some choice bits and pieces to be represented in this one game. So that way, certain characters that came way after the Naughty Dog era, can be reintroduced to everyone.
Right.
And then we can go off on a new game if VV's actually doing it and they're taking a break from Crash for remasters and whatnot to then do a new game. They're letting Beanox take, the task of reintroducing that kind of stuff, bringing in Crunch if they wanted to, bringing in Nina if they wanted to. Hell, Velo or someone, I don't know. Like other characters from other racing games, other characters that were introduced in the franchise later, and then get them back familiar with everyone. And those who have never really played Crash or haven't, their only experience has been with Insane or whatever. And then from there, if VV drops a new title at some point, they can use these characters. They can, and no one will be lost on. Wait, who's that? Who's this? Are they new characters that we've,
right?
Who is this?
Right. And one thing I want to add before we end, there is one thing I do want to add, was that there was someone that sent a super chat to me on the night of the Game Awards that said that they read somewhere, and I'm still looking for the article. So I mean, don't take this as kosher. Don't take this as fact. But somebody said that apparently, PlayStation came out and said that they have an announcement for CTR that will be specific to PlayStation 4, and I have to look into that. But I thought to myself, well, what would they do? And I thought, okay, they might bring an exclusive character, and I thought, okay. But why or how could they bring Spyro? Because Spyro is no longer exclusive. But then I thought Sir Daniel's is exclusive, and Medieval's been confirmed to be run in the Unreal Engine. And if this game is being done in the Unreal Engine, it would just be literally, here's the rig, here's the model, here's everything that you need for Sir Daniel. Have at it. And it might literally be a DLC. Hey, for PlayStation 4, you get Sir Dan in a skeletal cart. It'd be funny if
that is so cool. Dude, I would love that.
You see, it'd be funny if the cart had his other eye. That would be funny. His one eye. It's got one head beam, or one headlights on the other. He's got one headlights on the other side of where his eye is.
and see, if anything like that would actually happen, no one can essentially knock it because, again, their competitor, Mario Kart, is doing the same thing. They've got Link, they've got Villager and Isabelle, they've got Inklings from different IPs, but they're in Mario Kart, and that's a specifically Mario spin-off. But these other characters are being added. Racetracks like, what was it? It's escaping me. F-Zero is in there. So like, as they got 2 courses, 2 tracks. So you can add some kind of medieval-themed, spooky-looking area in Nitro-Fueled. You can have Spyro and have like some kind of Dragon Realms themed. Oh, that'd be so cool! Like an Artisans themed racetrack or something like that. That would be really, really cool.
I thought it'd be really funny is that if they wanted to cheap out and just do one track instead of having just one race, they could make the race slightly bigger. but have it you go through warp gates that goes to different aspect of different stages. So like you start off in Stone Hill, and then you go through a portal, and then you're in Skelos Badlands.
Oh yes.
And then you go
that
through,
would be cool.
And then you go through a portal again, and you go through I don't know, maybe Fireworks Factory or something, and then you go through the portal and you're back to Stone Hill, and you cross the checkpoint, and then you go through all over again. Or if they really wanted to, they could have like they could literally have it where it's like, okay, you start at Stone Hill, and then the first lap is Skelos and Fireworks Factory, and then the second lap might be a different course, or it might be the same track, and the track might be the same in terms of direction, but the environment might be different. Like, oh, let's go to Icy Altars the next, and it's like Spyro going through it's just a giant portal that you go through.
Because Nitro Kart did that with Velo's Arena. Like, there's different, aesthetically different sections to each part of that track. But yeah, you go through like warp gates, and you see all that. So that's a good idea, and that could definitely work. And it'd be really funny too. I was thinking about this as well the day we saw the announcement. We were already getting to speculating, me and my brother, and I was like, what if... Now, this is... it's really funny. This is similar to what Mario Kart's done, but yet Mario Kart took the mechanic, I still feel, from Nitro Kart, so it all kind of like trickles down. But like, what if they reimagined... I mean, we're already seeing that these tracks, you know, from just the base Crash Team Racing are pretty faithful to the originals, but we haven't seen all of them. So what if certain tracks were reimagined with Nitro Kart's anti-gravity mechanic in there? Because Mario Kart 8, their biggest thing was the anti-gravity mechanic. So with that, they still brought back a lot of tracks from past Mario Karts and whatnot, but they reimagined some of them to work with that mechanic. Now aesthetically, it's not too different, but there were some touch-ups here and there that made it still feel different and still feel like a whole new experience. Like, I played this one on the Wii, but now for Switch, like, it's reimagined and it's a little bit different, and it still feels, you know, it's familiar but different the way, you know, all these remasters have been. So I mean, it doesn't exactly, you know, go too far,
right? Yeah.
And it still fits within, you know, the creative liberties that they're taking with this project. So I mean, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was also thinking that maybe since they're adding like the warped motorcycle level elements to like Dingo Canyon or something like that, like maybe they could have a different version of Dingo Canyon that's like the UFO one or just like the nighttime one.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, seeing as a lot of those, how we were saying, a lot of those tracks from the original are lifted from the platforming games, but at the same time, the platforming games with those themed levels, they are different. Well, there are different themes to those aesthetics. So, like, how the racing levels, the motorcycle levels have a day level, an evening level, a night level. So, like, to be able to like maybe switch, like if you're in the course select and you click it, maybe if you click it, it gives you a little mini menu of like, okay, now what, you know, setting,
I like that.
time of day do you want? Do you want it set in the evening, at night? That would be really cool. Beanox, consider this, please.
Yeah.
It'd be really, really cool. I mean, they're going all out, and seeing as they took it upon themselves, I think, and who knows, this could, you know, the carts being, you know, from Nitro Kart can simply be a mere little reference to VV, because, you know, again, VV did Insane. They're using VV's assets from Insane for this, so it could be a little, you know, the dice already, before the game even was announced, the dice were already a throwback to Nitro Kart. So with these carts being from Nitro Kart, and we don't even know how many more carts there are. They said there are more. So are there going to be carts from Tag Team Racing? Are they going to make up entirely new carts? Is Crash's motorcycle going to be a freaking option to choose from? Like, we don't know. So
possibly.
This is all just going off of one trailer, a few screenshots, and like a small bit of news that they've officially put out. But to speculate about this stuff, like, we don't know, and that's the fun part about it. It feels fresh again. It feels, you know, it's not just, we don't know what to expect, and that's the greatest part of any kind of big game like this, whether it's a familiar game we all know and love and it's being brought back, or it's entirely new. Like, I'm getting the feelings that I'm getting with Mario Odyssey. Mario Odyssey came out, it was this big, and speaking of the whole Crash and Spyro thing coming out in conjunction back to back, that can definitely happen, you know, in the same year or whatever, because Mario and Link and Zelda did it. Breath of the Wild and Odyssey came out both, you know, last year. And those made the Switch's sales just go into the stratosphere. So to have Crash and Spyro actually come out back to back again, we haven't seen that in a very long time. It could benefit, basically everyone since it's multi-platform. But I've got my original point, but it'd be awesome to see that. So
yeah, definitely.
Is there any last minute stuff you guys want to mention, real quick?
I think I'm good.
I'm good too.
It's been a very fun discussion. Like expectations, that was the one thing from Odyssey. Expectations with it being this brand new experience. It's everything we know and loved from Mario, but with all the new stuff they were adding, completely new characters, completely new this and that. We didn't know what to expect. With every new trailer, every new little sneak peek and look at the game before release, it always caught my attention specifically, where I was like, oh my god, what is this? What is that? That's in the game? And now we can do that with this, because they're adding more than just what's there for the base game. And there's already, while CTR for the original was extensive enough, it by itself, I feel, and a lot of people are voicing their opinion, which is a completely valid opinion, that the base CTR experience might not be enough to not compete with anything in particular, but even just to stand on its own legs as a modern game, with everything else being so extensive, with Spyro being so extensive, and all that kind of stuff. So to add all this stuff not only makes sense because you want to go all out and surprise everyone, but it gives it, like King Guy was saying, enough to have that longevity. So I'm looking forward to whatever they're gonna do. There's so much to expect, and that we're all gonna throw our piece in the more we see on our own channels, the more we see stuff come out for this. But I'm excited. I'm very excited.
Oh, so am I.
As am I.
So yeah, like I said, I didn't think it was gonna happen this soon. To some degree, some part of me says that this really still kind of wasn't needed. But I am glad it's here. I never said I wasn't going to get hyped. I, in fact, said the opposite. I said if it happens, whenever it happens, I'll be really hyped. And I said that in the comeback saga back when I thought if this were to happen, it might not get, to this degree that we know of it now. I didn't think that was going to happen. So I was like, if we're just going to get a base CTR remaster, that's fine and all. But, that was my first initial, just a meh. But seeing it and seeing all the stuff they're promising, I'm on board. I'm completely on board. So
yeah, definitely.
I'm ready. June 21st, 2019. You can pre-order it now through GameStop, Amazon, a lot of other retailers for any of the consoles that you want. You can do both physical and digital. You can get the Oxide edition. That's $60. You can get the base game, the standard game, which is $40. If you do it on digital for the PS Store, you get the avatars, which is Crash and Coco, and the PS theme. So that's really awesome. But yeah, that's it for me, and that's it from you guys too.
That's all from me.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me in this podcast. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Marcelo.
And I'm Miharu.
I'm Canadian Guy.
Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys later. Take care.